Welcome to the Urban Herald Deep Dive. As part of the Urban Herald team, our mission is always to cut through the noise, give you those truly important insights. Today we're embarking on a really crucial journey, actually. It reveals so much about how society's perceptions are evolving and the profound power of media. We're talking about how autism is portrayed in film and television. We're going to explore, more than 3 decades of representation, from those earliest depictions, which are often, let's be honest, quite problematic, right up to today's characters, which are hopefully more nuanced, more authentic.
Yeah, and what's truly, I think, a revelation here is how this isn't just about what's on screen for entertainment. It goes much deeper. It's about understanding, it's about empathy, and it's about actively challenging these long-held assumptions we all might have. We've meticulously analyzed extensive archives from the Urban Herald, really tracking this evolution to pull out the most impactful nuggets of knowledge for you.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? Well, whether you're deeply curious about neurodiversity, maybe you're a fan of some of the specific shows we'll mention, or you simply want to be better informed, you'll gain a richer perspective on how these portrayals impact public perception and, most crucially, the autistic community itself. We'll celebrate the breakthroughs, definitely, but also confront the persistent challenges. And ask, can media truly bridge this understanding gap? Can it foster a more inclusive society? Let's unpack this. Okay, so our journey into media representation really has to begin back in 1988. There was this one film that undeniably brought autism into the global mainstream, Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman's portrayal of Raymond Babbitt. I mean, it was revolutionary for its time in many ways, but it also maybe inadvertently set a pretty problematic template.
It really did. If you look at the broader trend, Rain Man kind of cemented an image. A compelling image, sure, but one that created deeply unrealistic expectations for, well, decades. Raymond was presented as this autistic savant, right? A character with these extraordinary mathematical skills, but also significant social difficulties. And that single image became dominant. It shaped public understanding, even professional understanding sometimes, despite the fact that research consistently shows only about, 10% of autistic people actually possess savant abilities.
Only 10%.
Yeah. It raises this important question: how did one, albeit powerful, film come to define an entire incredibly diverse spectrum for generations?
That's such a powerful point. Because healthcare providers, educators, even families, so many started measuring autistic individuals against Raymond's very specific presentation. It just created this narrow, really limiting framework. It failed completely to capture the vast diversity of the autism spectrum. It wasn't just about what Rain Man showed, it was maybe more about what it didn't show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to, let's say, contemporary television, and we see a remarkable surge, both in the quantity and, I think importantly, increasingly in the quality of representation. Shows like The Good Doctor, Atypical Extraordinary Attorney Woo, they've brought autistic protagonists right into mainstream audiences. Each offers different perspectives and, frankly, different levels of authenticity.
Okay, let's take The Good Doctor. Dr. Sean Murphy. Huge global success, no question. Yeah. It does try to balance his exceptional medical skills with realistic social challenges, workplace discrimination.
Yeah.
But for an audience like ours, keen on this topic, what are the specific criticisms? Does it still fall back into those old traps we just talked about, even with good intentions?
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. Well, The Good Doctor has absolutely done wonders for visibility. You're right, critics often argue it still leans pretty heavily on that savant trope. Sean's exceptional abilities sometimes seem to overshadow the more diverse realities of autistic experience. It can perpetuate the idea that autistic individuals need these extraordinary talents to be valued, or even just to succeed. He's a compelling character, definitely. But the narrative often feels like it's trying to fit a complex neurotype into a pre-existing heroic mold, rather than letting the neurotype maybe redefine what a hero looks like.
Right, and then there's Atypical. That followed the teenager Sam Gardner on his journey. It got praised for addressing some practical aspects of autistic adolescence, but it also faced quite a bit of criticism from the autism community itself. Can you elaborate on why that was?
Yeah. Atypical was certainly a step forward in exploring daily life, but it truly has, I think. Extraordinary Attorney Woo is widely praised for its deeply nuanced portrayal of Woo Young Woo. The show somehow manages to depict autism as both a source of unique strengths like her incredible legal memory and pattern recognition and genuine everyday difficulties. Things like navigating social cues or dealing with sensory overload. It masterfully avoids those extremes. It's not pure inspiration porn where the character just exists to make neurotypical audiences feel good. And it's not the burden narrative either, where autism is only shown as this tragic thing or a source of family stress. Woo Young-woo is complex. She's a fully formed individual, and that's its real power.
It's that very quest for nuance, isn't it, that brings us to perhaps the most impactful shift we're seeing now. The rise of neurodivergent actors themselves playing autistic characters. This isn't just about ticking a representation box. It feels like it's about an authenticity that fundamentally reshapes the storytelling.
Yeah.
What specifically makes this so powerful, do you think?
Oh, it's transformative completely. When an autistic actor portrays an autistic character, they bring this undeniable authenticity, a depth that lived experience uniquely provides. Kayla Cromer's performance as Matilda and Everything's Gonna Be Okay was just a watershed moment. It showed the industry, what was possible, what they were missing. And Chloe Hayden's portrayal of Quinnis in Heartbreak High, widely celebrated, justifiably so. It's such a genuine representation of complex autistic traits like camouflaging traits to fit in and stimming those self-regulatory movements. And the show's commitment, its unwavering commitment to consulting with autistic advisors and casting autistic actors, that was key to its success. It's the difference between someone observing an experience and someone actually living it.
And it's not always about an explicit diagnosis on screen either, is it? I'm thinking of characters like Abed Nadir from Community, never explicitly diagnosed in the show, but he resonated so deeply within the autistic community. And learning that the creator, Dan Harmon, had his own realization about his autism during the show's development, well, that clearly contributed to Abed's authentic feel. It's a testament to how lived experience transforms storytelling, sometimes even unconsciously. Moving beyond adult dramas, there's also been a significant expansion of autism awareness in media for younger audiences. This feels like a particularly vital area, wouldn't you say?
It absolutely is. And what truly stands out here is the proactive approach that's being taken. Think about Sesame Street introducing Julia, an autistic Muppet designed with such careful consultation, specifically to promote understanding and acceptance among very young children. It's about building that empathy right from the ground up.
And then more recently, just in 2024, PBS Kids' Carl the Collector. That broke new ground, didn't it? Featuring the first autistic lead character in a children's program. How has this show uniquely advanced the conversation for kids?
Carl the Collector is, honestly, a masterclass in comprehensive, authentic representation. Carl is an autistic raccoon, and his collecting interests, his problem-solving skills, they're presented as real strengths. But the show doesn't shy away from challenges either. It addresses things like anxiety and sensory sensitivities, but all in an age-appropriate and, crucially, a wonderfully celebratory context. What's truly remarkable, though, is the show's commitment to authenticity behind the scenes. They hired neurodivergent staff across multiple roles, writers, animators, voice talent. This kind of holistic approach genuinely centers autistic experiences. It fosters empathy in neurotypical kids and provides that vital, positive representation for autistic viewers who, let's face it, are often starved for characters they can truly see themselves in. So this proliferation of autistic characters, it has undeniably boosted public awareness. Our own research indicates that exposure to well-crafted characters can significantly improve neurotypical viewers' understanding. It can actively dismantle negative stereotypes.
Yeah, that statistic you mentioned earlier, 98.3% of young people believing increased autism visibility on platforms like TikTok has positive effects on acceptance is staggering. But it does raise a question for me. While visibility is definitely up, are there any concerns about the quality of that visibility? Does the sheer volume maybe risk trivializing or misrepresenting autism, even while it's increasing general awareness?
That's a really critical counterpoint to consider, yes. While the numbers on increased awareness are powerful, the quality of that awareness is absolutely paramount. Positive, nuanced portrayals. They foster genuine empathy and acceptance. When characters are complex, multidimensional individuals, not just collections of symptoms or tropes, viewers develop a much greater understanding. The success of shows like Heartbreak High proves that audiences appreciate authentic representation that doesn't infantilize or sensationalize. However, when the content is shallow or relies heavily on stereotypes, even if it creates awareness, it can absolutely reinforce harmful misconceptions, or, as you hinted, even lead to a kind of trivialization where autism becomes almost like a trend rather than a deeply personal neurotype.
Right. But that deeper understanding, when it is achieved through genuine representation, provides such crucial validation for autistic viewers themselves. Many report feeling less isolated, more understood, and seeing diverse autistic experiences represented different ethnicities, genders, varying support needs that actively helps combat that historical focus on, the white male, supposedly high-functioning presentation.
True. But despite this progress, harmful stereotypes unfortunately persist. The big one is the overrepresentation of savant syndrome. As we said, it affects only maybe 10% of autistic individuals, but it still dominates so many portrayals, even in contemporary shows like The Good Doctor. It's just such a compelling narrative hook, I suppose, but it really misleads.
And our 2025 research flags several other problematic patterns that just keep surfacing, didn't it? Things like a continued focus on white, male, middle-class characters often. The infantilization of autistic individuals, where adults are treated like perpetual children. And that pervasive burden narrative, where autism is positioned primarily as this source of family stress or some kind of tragic affliction that needs to be overcome. These stereotypes aren't harmless. They contribute directly to diagnostic disparities, to inadequate support for underrepresented groups who just don't see themselves reflected accurately.
What's also truly fascinating here is the kind of ideological contrast that still plays out on screen sometimes. You have the medical model, which often emphasizes deficits, a need for curing or fixing. And then you have the neurodiversity movement, which sees autism as a natural neurological difference, a form of human variation, not a disorder that needs eliminating. And many productions still seem to lean heavily into that older medical model rather than fully embracing a neurodiversity perspective.
There's also that significant age bias we see. Historically, portrayals have disproportionately focused on children. It marginalizes the experiences, the needs, the whole lives of autistic adults. And this age bias reinforces the misconception that autism is just a childhood condition, which couldn't be further from the truth. It leaves so many adults feeling completely invisible.
Exactly. And then there's that troubling phenomenon, sometimes called inspiration porn. This is where autistic characters exist primarily just to inspire or motivate the neurotypical audience. They aren't really developed as complex, multidimensional individuals with their own goals, their own desires, their own agency. This often goes hand in hand with the burden narrative we talked about, framing autism, mainly as a source of stress for others. Both of these frameworks, in their own ways, can inadvertently dehumanize autistic people. They reduce them to plot devices rather than letting them be genuine characters.
And these inaccurate or stereotypical portrayals, they reinforce negative attitudes. They have real-world consequences directly affecting autistic people's employment prospects, their educational opportunities, their social relationships. And while increased awareness can be good, the rapid spread of information, especially on social media, has also led to concerns. Concerns about self-diagnosis without proper professional support, and that very real risk, as we touched on, of the trivialization of autism, making it seem like just a trend.
So the big question is, how do we move forward constructively? Well, the most crucial factor, I think, for truly positive and authentic representation is meaningful, consistent consultation with autistic individuals themselves. Throughout the entire creative process, it really comes down to embodying that principle. Nothing about us without us.
Right. Which means productions that actually involve autistic consultants, advisors, performers. They consistently achieve far more authentic, more respectful portrayals. It just makes sense. It's also about prioritizing casting autistic actors for autistic roles. And crucially, providing the necessary accommodations and support on set to make that possible and successful. This movement, thankfully, seems to have gained unprecedented momentum recently. We see established actors like Anthony Hopkins, Bella Ramsey, publicly discussing their own neurodivergent identities. That challenges old perceptions right from within the industry itself.
Absolutely. And casting directors are increasingly recognizing that neurodivergent performers bring these unique perspectives that enhance storytelling in ways that neurotypical actors, no matter how talented they are, simply cannot replicate. It's not just an ethical imperative anymore, though it certainly is that. It's also becoming an economic one.
Yeah.
Productions featuring neurodivergent talent often experience enhanced marketability, critical acclaim, because audiences are craving that authenticity now. They can spot it.
We also desperately need narrative diversity. We need to push beyond those tired, old savant stereotypes and explore the full spectrum of autistic experiences. We need characters of different ethnicities, different genders, various socioeconomic backgrounds, people with varying support needs. We need to see autistic parents, autistic friends, autistic professionals from absolutely every walk of life.
And for you listening, critical engagement is so key. Support the productions that you see are prioritizing authenticity. Provide constructive feedback when you can on problematic portrayals. Seek out content that's actually created by and features autistic individuals. Amplify autistic voices online and elsewhere. And continue learning about neurodiversity beyond just what you see in the media. Your choices as viewers send a really powerful message back to the industry.
And as part of the Urban Herald team, we're always tracking the trending shows, the recent milestones. Looking at 2025, Heartbreak High's second season, while it faced some ongoing criticisms, it's still influencing industry practices, still pushing boundaries. Then there's The Assembly, that BBC ITV series. Really innovative format featuring autistic, neurodivergent, and learning disabled interviewers questioning celebrities. It completely shifts the power dynamic. And Channel 4's Patience, starring the autistic actress Ella Maisie Purvis as an autistic police archivist. That exemplifies how authentic casting in lead roles is, hopefully, becoming more the norm, not the exception.
So if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, the evolution of autistic characters in media, it really does mirror the broader societal progress we're seeing towards neurodiversity acceptance. We've seen some truly remarkable improvements since 1988. Authentic casting is increasing, diverse autistic experiences are finally gaining much-needed attention.
Yeah, but the authenticity gap, it's still substantial, isn't it? Only a minority of autistic characters are actually portrayed by autistic actors.
Yeah.
And the persistence of those savant syndrome portrayals, despite how statistically rare they are, that continues to shape unrealistic expectations. It continues to overshadow the vast, complex spectrum of autistic experiences.
Moving forward, the entertainment industry simply must prioritize authentic consultation, diverse casting practices, and nuanced storytelling that captures the full, rich spectrum of autistic lives. And audiences, as we said, also bear a significant responsibility here for critically engaging with this representation, for supporting authenticity, and for advocating for better, more accurate portrayals.
Well, ultimately, the goal has to be media representation that genuinely serves the autistic community itself, increasing understanding, reducing stigma, and truly celebrating the inherent diversity and value of autistic lives.
Which brings us to a final important question for you, our listener, to maybe ponder. How might seeing more authentic and genuinely diverse autistic characters in the media you consume fundamentally change the way we all interact and help us build a truly inclusive society?
That's our deep dive for today from the Urban Herald. Join us next time for another exploration into the stories that shape our world.